Whew, boy. Can you hear me? This is pretty nerve-wracking. I'm the guy in the meeting that won't shut up, that always goes past your 5 minutes, and the chairman's always looking at you, and if he pisses you off, you go just a little longer. That's me. And I've never done this, so now it's time to put up and shut up, right? So here I am, going to give it my best shot. My name is Leon, I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 12 months behind this lady, or 13 months behind this lady over here, June 1st, 1980. Thank you. I thank you. It's the reason I got it. I thank you is the reason I got it. I was born and raised on my grandmother's reservation, Fort Belknap, Montana. I'm enrolled on my grandfather's reservation, Blackfeet Reservation in Browning. And my dad is from Porcupine, South Dakota. And one thing that I'm authority of is being a half-brother. My mom had 8 kids. Me, from my dad, I'm the oldest, and she had 7 more from her next husband. And my dad had 22 kids from 14 women. Oh, man. And people say in the Indian world, oh, you're just like full brothers. No, you're not. The first time you get in a fight, real good fight on something, all the full brothers and sisters go. And I'm the only halfie around, It's like I'm lucky I'm the oldest and toughest, right? So it didn't matter. But still, it was kind of hurtful, These damn half brothers and sisters, treat you like a half brother, I was born in 1955 on a Fort Belknap Indian reservation. I don't know how it was in the rest of the country. In 1953, natives were finally allowed to drink in bars in Montana. And my aunt said, right outside of Fort Belknap, there's a little white town called Harlem. 900 people, had 7 bars, right? And she said that day, and most of the natives didn't have cars. They had buckboards and horses, right? She said they were all lined up outside of town, all waiting to get in. I think it was noon hit, and all the doors open, and all the natives are rushing in. And I guess my grandma, her first thing was she had her nickel, and she always dreamt of playing the jukebox. And I really wish I knew what song she played, but I could see her, my grandma going up, putting her nickel in it, and playing her song, That kind of became my story, too, as I drank it. I always played the jukebox, the same 3 songs, So being born in 1955, a couple years after that, as we know, the first couple years you're drinking, you're just going absolutely nuts and crazy, and you don't know the real consequences of it. And this was the whole reservation. Everybody was just going ape shit on drinking. Was it nurture or nature? My great-grandmother's generation didn't do that. All the elders just kind of looked at, but my grandmother's generation and my mother's generation, holy shit, it was just absolutely crazy. And them old people would, they'd have a cigarette or they'd have a beer. Something that most of us in here couldn't do, right? We had to have a cigarette, then we're going to have a carton. If we have a beer, then we're going to, until we drop over. So it was really different that way for them. Eventually, I lost my grandmother to drinking. I lost my mother to drinking. I lost 2 brothers. They were both, at the time, under 18 in car wrecks. They were drinking. And a couple uncles, awful cirrhosis. So I learned at an early age how powerful and dangerous and scary and evil this shit was. My grandma died in June 1961. She was the one that was raising me. And my aunt said she was in the Fort Belknap Indian Hospital. And the day before she died, and in those days, people drank out of bottles, right? Straight, whether it was wine, it was mostly wine in those days. And she was going through withdrawals, but in those days, she went into a coma. Nowadays they have medication to help you through it. Well, in the day before she died, she was making piercings with her lips, like she was trying to drink, And this disease, the day before my grandma died, they couldn't let her go. This disease that we have is so powerful, it'll follow you to the minute you die. I don't know where it goes then, but it's with us, man. And my mother, died from it, but I just keep thinking of my poor little grandma, pursing her lips less than 24 hours before she died. This disease is evil, and we got it. There's no way out of it. We got it. And I lost 5 people since the middle of May, close to me, very tragically. 2 people from the disease, tragically from the disease, 2 people from COVID, and a friend from cancer. So I lost 5 people since the middle of May, and I spent most of the last couple of weeks cussing and screaming, throwing shit around the house, because one of my friends is really dear to me. And so I do come kind of a heavy heart, but I'm really happy to be here. Who could not be happy in Alcoholics Anonymous? At the time right now, I don't have a home group. I've been in Las Vegas a couple years, and I'll tell you the reason why a little later. My first drink, it was really odd. My uncles, everybody used to sit around down the valley. We lived poverty. No water, electricity, none of that. People know the typical old reservation life of the 30s, 40s, 50s, and half the 60s before the government program started. And I was a little boy. I don't know how old I was, 4, maybe 5. But they had the uncles were sitting around drinking their wine, and I guess they seen me there with I had a cap gun, shooting them, and they decided to give me a drink, and they'd give me a cap full of wine. And for whatever reason, that brought me from this unconsciousness that we have as a child to consciousness. It was just like, I didn't know what was going on, and they just thought it was funny, keep giving me wine. And I don't know how long, it probably wasn't too long, but I went into a blackout, and I must have passed out, and then I woke up, and my grandma they had come home by then, and they were mad, they were furious, they ran everybody off, and I come up, and my grandma, I came to, and she had this cold rag, and she was wiping my face. I must have threw up. And I remember sitting up and going in the other room where they were, wondering where they were. Because, oh my God, I must have missed something, You ever have feelings sometimes you pass out at a party, you wake up, and you think you missed something? I did that from my very first time, 4 years old, And then my mind kind of fuzzed out back into the innocence of youth again, I don't remember anything. I thought at one point that maybe it was just a childhood memory. It was like, I could have made it up, but a few years ago, the last remaining uncle told me that story. So it was true. And then I had a foot on him and 100 pounds on him, and I just felt like jumping up and beat the crap out of him. And I said, and because he kind of snickered, and I said, "You motherfucker!" I said, "That's not funny." Where's he get this funny? And then of course, he's So my upbringing, I was kind of I'm getting my phone so I don't. Sometimes you get me going. I don't shut up. Pete put me on a timer. Okay. Well, I'll put it to that, and then I'll shut up before then. So growing up on a Fort Belknap Indian reservation in life, I grew up when people say, "Oh, you grew up in 2 worlds." I grew up in 2 worlds in a sense. I had a certain set of values for my own people. The honesty and respect and semper fi. See that? Now that's respect. You wear a hat there. And then I had a certain value in behavior towards the non-Indian community in Harlem, where no matter what I did to them wasn't wrong. They hated us. It was our homeland for thousands of years, and they would tell us to go back to where we came from. In school, they would call us names. The N. I never knew what the N word was. I thought that was me. And I went home one time and I told my mom, I said, "That's what they're calling me." And of course, my mom, "Why you are?" Yeah. Okay. So we took it upon ourselves to beat the hell out of some of these little kids, to stop. Just the only way, you try to talk to them, how little kids are. So me and my cousin Emery one time in second grade, these little girls, they kept standing around us calling the N-word. In a little town, we knew where they lived. So we got in this hedge and waiting, and they were skipping down the street, and we stepped out. And man, we beat the hell out of them. And, it wasn't push, oh darn you. It was like, it was Indian kids, res kids, man. We knew this fist to face, right? And it was at that moment I learned, oh shit, we got in trouble. Holy mac. It's like everybody's whooping our ass. And it was like the principal was just whipping on us but trying to get us to cry and say I'm sorry. But I knew right then, them white people would never make me say I'm sorry, and they would never make me cry. You mean some bitches, you do what the hell you want. I wasn't going to cry, and I didn't. I never have. Boy, I sure got in a lot of trouble a little bit. We used to do, all us Indian kids used to do some really crazy things just to do it. I think it was 1969, we emptied out a liquor store. One of my friends found out how to open the back door of a liquor store. And those days, we didn't have Facebook, phones, none of that. But somehow the word got out. It was like every Indian kid in town was there, and we're all running off to the reservation with a case of something, right? I don't know. It's just, I was thinking, look back and wonder, nobody even had telephones in their house. All of a sudden, there was about like 50 Indian kids, man. We were running out there with each had a case of hard liquor, and we got on a reservation along the Milk River and had a big bonfire. And it was interesting. You look, there's like 7,500 natives running around with a fifth of whiskey or whatever, and the spare in their hand, right, ready to. When this ran out, they just had to go here, And seeing that was kind of funny, but boy, some bad shit was going to happen when you got that many natives with a couple bottles to themselves, And so that's how we grew up. People said, "Oh, you had no morals." No, we had morals. We had standards. I would never offend an elder. I would give my life for you. No problem. But you get me off the reservation, man, anything goes. Yeah. One time we were sitting around my sisters and we're all talking about, well, what cartoon would you be if you were growing up? And so everybody had something to say about themselves. Somebody was Wile E. Coyote, and they came to me and said, "Who are you, Leon?" And I said, "I think I'm a Tasmanian devil." And one of my sisters goes, "Bullshit, you're Chucky, man." So today you get Chucky, all right? I'm going to reach out and grab little things about what happened in my life. But that's how I grew up, and I didn't care. I was in so much trouble. I mean, I could spend 30 minutes on all the shit I'd done to get me in trouble. So I went to boarding school, 4 of them. Yes, they didn't like Chucky, so they kept sending him on. And my kids asked me, "Oh, Dad, did they whip you in boarding school? They beat you?" I go, "Dad was bad. He deserved to get beat, One thing I did like about boarding school was we grew up in a little house. There was like 11 of us in this little tiny house on a reservation. And when somebody come home drunk and angry, the whole house paid. And you could tell when somebody came in the house how they were walking. And so I'd have to go crawl out the window. So I'm not dealing with this shit. In boarding school, I didn't have to deal with that. I had my own bed. I had sheets. I don't know anybody go to boarding school here, and and you had sheets, man, clean sheets. You changed twice a week. Showers. I had never took a shower. The first time I took a shower, I think, he'd come and checked on me. The guy showed me how to turn it on, and it's like unlimited hot water. I think it was in there like 30, 35 minutes. So, you okay? I go, yeah. I wanted to run it out of, it wasn't going to happen. So I liked boarding school in that way. And then 3 squares for people who live way out in the country and heated by wood stove. 3 squares is pretty damn good, Unlimited. I mean, I used to drink about a half a gallon of milk, each meal. I loved milk. That's probably why I'm damn big. Yeah. Milk did it, plus my dad's a giant too, so. I finally got in so much trouble, they shipped me to the Marines. I was in jail, 1971, in jail. I was in 60 day of a 90-day sentence. And this Marine Corps recruiter was standing, this thing knocking, and Leon here, and I peeked out that window and seen this guy. Holy shit, he had his khakis and his blues, and he looked good, man. And I said, I want to be like that. And he told me, so I can get you out of here. So, yeah? So you come in the Corps? And I said, sure. Ain't nothing else to do. So he went out, talked to the jailer and the judge, and opened the door and set me free. He gave me a couple days to get my stuff together, which means get drunk, blow off steam, and then they shipped me off to boot camp. I thought I died and went to heaven in the Corps. Man, it's like one of the duty stations was in Camp Pendleton. It's the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment is based there. And their enlisted club was basically some concrete slabs with a door, big heavy metal door. And the tables were bolted to the floor. The chairs are bolted to the floor. And they would, they give you only in pitchers of beer with these plastic. So there was nothing in there for you to use as a weapon. And they had a jukebox that had, because of the concrete, it had really nice acoustics, So that was kind of how when in Corps. And then eventually I was asked, and I think it was after the fall of Saigon in April '75. In July, President Ford wanted a reduction of force. Anybody that wanted out of the Corps, if you're under a year, you got a discharge. So I signed up. Actually, I was crazy in there too. I was really crazy. Chucky went in the Marine Corps. And my first sergeant came to me and he says, Leon, I think you should take the discharge. And I love the Corps, man. So I got discharged. I went over to Eastern Montana and I went to college. My GI Bill, I got an associate degree over there. How that happened, I have no clue. Yeah, but I did. I even got a picture of me and my little associate degree. And in 1978, then I went to Humboldt State in Northern California. And holy shit, a bunch of people just like me. Yeah, the natives, they grow all that good stuff up there. They had all kinds of booze, and the only difference between them and I was most of them came up about right here, right? So you always knew I was from somewhere else, right? But there's some really wonderful people up there. In April April 1980, I lost my second brother. And holy shit, that was just awful. I mean, I was his hero, right? He grew up, he was going to go in the Marines, and all this other crazy shit his big brother was doing, and he didn't make it. It was a Wednesday night, and for whatever reason, confusion, I lived in Arcata, California. The tribe and people sent me money to go home, but to Arcadia, California. And in those days, Western Union, now you just enter somebody's name, put money in it. No matter where they are, they could withdraw it, right? But there they couldn't. So I was stuck, and I just went on this. And then all the money come in on Monday, and they buried my brother on a Monday, and I just went crazy. So I was in front of a judge, and this is one of the fortunate things in my life. He was an ex-Marine, and he was looking at it. And at the time, I had, I don't know, like at least 3 assaults, 4 DUIs, all kinds of misdemeanors, pissing in public, all just whatever a drunk does, right? That was me. I had lots of them. And did you ever see that new thing on Facebook? It showed that drunk guy go scooting like he's ready to fight. That was me, man. He's like, give me the stink eye, man. Shit, I was ready. So anyways, I got a lot of trouble. Legal was, I couldn't even begin to list everything. I never considered sobriety. I just thought I was hopeless. I always believed that I was powerless. The first step, I knew this since 8th grade. 8th grade, one of the counselors had the gun on the door, and I was looking at that going, shit. I didn't lose a marriage because I was in 8th grade, or lose a job, but everything else pertained to me. And then growing up like that, like I grew up, and the reason you grew up so mean is you have no hope. I remember this white girl I was going to school with. Her dad owned the Chevy dealership. And she ran into me one time, ran over and said, Leon, my dad needs somebody to wash the cars. And to me, shit, that's like being an executive. And I ran over there. He didn't hire me. Indians, natives couldn't get shit for jobs around there. They had the fields, they had the, hay fields, beet fields, and potatoes. We were good enough for that. You could go to the military, come home a war hero, and that's what you did for a living. You worked out in there. That's all they gave us. So you had no hope, and you were angry. You were Chucky. Yeah, you were Chucky. Okay, I'll slash your tires. We tried to burn shit down. We did, too. And no remorse. Because when you got no hope, you don't give a shit. You do jail time? We just like, your first DUI, you get 30 days. No biggie. Second one, you get 60. No biggie. Third one, this was way back before Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And Montana, it was like third, you get 90. Oh, hell, I could do that too. And I did. No big deal. Get out, stretch, have smokes and go and look for your next, whatever else you're going to get into. So you have no hope. And you don't care. What happens to yourself. And then, like I said, you treat your family with a whole different value system than out in public. So I got sent to the VA hospital in I had my last drink in June 1st, 1980, and I looked it up Falmer's Almanac in Arcata. I think it was roughly around 6:30, because I had a 16 ounce of Bud, and I looked up where the sun was rising. And right before I took my last drink, and then I sang this kind of medicine song I knew, which I probably butchered because, and I put my beer down. And that bothered me, putting that beer down and leaving a half can of beer. They put me on a Greyhound, and I went down to the Bay Area to go to detox. And actually, when I was sober 30 years, I took a trip up there and stood exactly where I was standing. And knows, how we are. I looked down there just in case it was still there. It wasn't. That's some crazy shit, right? We all do that shit. It lives up here. And I used to tell my wife, she was ignoring me some of the shit I'd do. And she'd go, "You drank again?" Yeah. I told her about that stuff about waking up with somebody you didn't know. I'm sure a few have done that. This is a convention. This is why we're all here, right? First you wake up and kind of touch your face to see if you got beat up, and then you check your fist to see if you got in a fight, and then you just kind of get that side eye to see you're laying by her. And then you go to check. What do I have on? And so you spend time trying to sneak, trying to get your clothes on and quietly sneak, and she's laying there pretending to be asleep. Praying to God that you get the hell out of there. And here we're acting like we didn't want to wake her up, right? And then my wife would go, "You drank again?" "Well, yeah, that's what we do." And I never knew I wanted to be sober. I never knew how to be sober. AA was viewed as such a suspicion at home, and it still is. We get Christian missionaries all the time up there. We get Jehovah's and Mormons, and they used to go to my grandma's little house and peek in a window. Yeah. See if anybody's home. How freaking rude is that? What if I went to your house and peeked in the window? Shit, you'd call the cops, right? Big Indian guy. Any of you Mormons home? I'd still be in jail. So there was a huge disconnect. My great-grandmother, prayed in the Owe. She prayed in Dakota. Quietly. She'd do little things for us. Later on, I recognized what she was doing. My grandmother, who died, first one died, she kind of was leaned both ways. My mom was paranoid Catholic. Holy shit. And then they tried to make us go to Catholic school, catechism. And I was 5 years old, come off the reservation to Fort Belknap to Harlem, the little town. And they had this church in town, had the facade. It was, like stucco, whatever it is. And to us, that was a huge building. We lived in little houses and stuff. And I remember, and then we went down to the basement. Oh, shit, go down the basement, it's cold and it's dark and you can't see right away, and because you've never been anything like that. And I remember my aunt bribed me because, she made me a real bologna sandwich with white sliced bread. In those days, man, you're really eating high there. And she had a banana in there. So, man, this is like, you get this kind of lunch with some crackers in there. And I remember walking in, and my whole family loves this story. All of a sudden, it wasn't out of the dark, because obviously this nun, she comes out, seemed to me out of nowhere, and they got them robes and the big black habit and the thing here. And she don't even ask, she reaches up and grabs me, my arm. "Oh, come on, little boy." And by then I was so, terrified. I didn't know what to do. I pulled and I dropped my lunch and I wanted out, and she wouldn't let me go. And her hands were so cold and so hard, and man, I was scared. So the only thing I know how to do was I jumped at her and I sunk my teeth in her forearm. And I bit as hard as I could bite. I was one of those feral wild Indians. She screamed, but she let me go. And I was up the stairs. I ran up the stairs, and my aunt always said this was like a 5-mile road back to the reservation. My aunt was driving, looking at me, and at the 3-mile mark, she said I was still going. I was going home. So that's how we were introduced. I think every nun we got there, I always like to say that, and they were angry because they got stuck there. I mean, who the hell wants to go to north central Montana and do your holy work, And I always thought, they must have flunked nun school, right? That's where they were. They were last in their class. So they came up with us, and they were mean. But I picked mean over these priests. They were evil. These priests were evil. We had a set of priests in the 60s that really enjoyed giving oral sex to little Indian boys. They didn't stop. Well, this one guy didn't stop. He disappeared. And then they found him out, in the reservation. And about a year later, they found him. Somebody had hung him. So I told my mom, you're an effing liar. I said, Mom, he touched me with my pants down. She goes, you're an effing liar. Priest won't do that. Priest was doing that. And priest died because of that, So that was my Christian upbringing. I did not like it. I didn't like Christianity. If this was Christianity and what Jesus stood for, don't sign me up. And that kept with me all my life. So I was in a VA hospital in 1980, detox for 2 weeks. And the detox, this is an interesting side of it. That detox I was in, if you ever seen that movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that's a true story. And it was in that ward I was in. Yeah, it was like, holy shit, this looks familiar, And I knew this, there was an elderly nurse there, and her name was Grace Lord. Oh my God, what a name. But she was sitting up on the reception desk, and so I'm in by then they have you in pajamas, right, in a robe. And I'm sitting there with the broom leaning against the wall, and she starts laughing, and she calls me a what? And Chief Brompton, that big Indian guy, played by Will, he existed. I have a connection with that brother, man. So I hope he got sober, because that was an awesome place. But he had all of that nurse, that real mean nurse. She was a Korean combat nurse. She existed. But the VA, they spent a lot of money. I was in that. And then they shipped me to this 6-month program. And they had spent a lot of money with these world-famous psychologists coming in, diagnosing us, and going to show us how to be free. Free from whatever ails us. And it's interesting, they spend a lot of money doing what we do for free in this program. Step 1. That's all they deal with is step 1. And they think that if they get you to admit that, man, you're like 99% there, is their belief, right? So it was a good program. I learned a lot about myself. They have you read a lot of books, the anger book, this book, and but it was an interesting program. But I learned there that I loved being sober. I learned that in detox, my first Monday. Oh my God, it was sitting out in the courtyard. You imagine an institution, and then there's like a couple thousand veterans, kind of like they're doing the Thorazine shuffle. Anybody know what around, and you're kind of wondering what you're in. It's like, you're in a nut house. Right where we belong, And they had, but I knew, and there was like concertina wire, and I thought, and a big fence, and I felt so safe, and I just started getting this feeling of contentment. Man, I love being sober. I wasn't crazy about being there, but I just loved that feeling. Monday morning, you didn't wake up with anybody different. You didn't get beat up. You're not in jail. Or you didn't get in a fight. It was like, those feelings were so foreign to me. When I was 25 years old, which was sad, that I never had any kind of good feelings about that, And then I had, so anyway, that's where I got my start. My journey in AA started in probably August of 1980. They make you sign out and go do different things. Different networking, they call it. And you got to sign down for getting on this bus on this time and get off this. So I went to an AA meeting in Mountain View. And this AA meeting, holy shit, it was like right on El Camino, if anybody knows the Bay Area. And it's really fancy. These cars pull up. It's really an upscale meeting kind of people. Cars I can't even afford today. It's like, shit, look at, So I walk in, and I didn't relate. I really loved the readings, they're really good, but they talked about, this one guy talked about, yeah, I flew back on that Concorde from France to New York, and I threw up and passed out, and everybody's ha ha ha. It's like, or somebody fell off their yacht in Monterey. I couldn't relate to that. I still can't. Fall off my canoe at home or something, But what really got me was when I was leaving the meeting, when it was over, okay. I was leaving, and I was walking out the door, and I heard this voice, excuse me. I'm kind of hard of hearing, so I didn't know she was talking to me. And she, excuse me, and this little old white lady came up to me, and she grabbed my arm, and she's holding my arm, and she looked at me, and she said, I'm so sorry. I go, why? She says, AA doesn't work for your kind. And I thought, whoa. I was on Thorazine. She could thank her higher power. I was on Thorazine, And I jerked away from her, and she gave me this indignant look, like, how dare you jerk away from me kind of thing. What a little shithead, So I went back, and I had to get immediately into counseling, and they talked me out of it and everything. So I had written AA off. So, well, that's the way those suckers are. I ain't going back. And about 2 months later, I entered a new phase, and somebody said, hey, Leon, I think there's an Native American Indian, they called us in those days, AA meeting in San Jose. So we got the address, and I went that night. And I walked in that door, and it was like, oh, my God. It was a treatment home, but there was a lot of community there. And there was about, 50 people in the meeting. And sitting in the corner was this little old lady, Lucy. And she passed away. She was well into her hundreds. And at the time, I think she sobered up in the 50s or something, And the meeting was over, and people were walking out, introducing themselves. She walked up, she grabbed my face, and she held my face, and she said, you belong with us. And something about that and it was a 2-hour bus ride back to Menlo Park from San Jose. I could not sit down. I was so excited. I was standing there, and these people had what I wanted. They had jobs, they had sobriety, long-term sobriety, 20, 30 years. I mean, my God, it's 1980. Who heard of that? And we were working at Lockheed and FMC, all these companies, and I said, that's what I really wanted, a job. And the first time in my life, that gift I got from that meeting was hope. Hope for me. It's such a precious gift. Hope. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know who to pray for. I mean, we can go over hours over higher power and everything. Native American religion was illegal until 1978. In 1980, somebody burnt sage in here. Oh my God, that is it smells so good. It feels so good to smudge, just a smudge, So I did that journey. But the thing was, it was given hope. And I went to no ends to not lose that. I didn't have nothing happening in front of me but that. I had to finish. I had 3 months at the VA. I had no job. I had restitution. I had fines. I had potential prison time. I had all this shit. My family told me to stay in California. They didn't want Chucky home. Isn't that sad? And so I was given that hope, and I have guarded that with a passion since I've been in this program. After I left the VA in January 1981, I checked into Four Winds Lodge, and right there, Vic, his name is Vic Hill, Southern Cheyenne, said, I could skip phase 1 and just go into phase 2 where you're allowed to work and come back, go through counseling and all that. So he let me do that, and I stayed there a year. I needed that. A year and a half and I was still afraid of going out. I took abuse. I had the VA gave me these gigantic pills of Antabuse, and I took them I think I had the pills around 4 or 5 years. You know, people say, "Oh, that's cheating." Hey, I'm sober. Yeah. I do whatever it is. You know, shit, I take metformin. I got metformin in there. I'm alive. You know, so whatever it is that you got to do, you do. You know, I faced a lot of racism in AA, unfortunately, especially the last 4 years here in Las Vegas and Laughlin. Some, they don't take natives seriously. They always make bullshit native jokes or act like there's a John Wayne movie, you know, and I try not to go back to the true Chucky, because I would have been in a lot of trouble, but some of them deserved it, but I just, you know, and a lot of us, you know, in the old days when we drank, if we didn't like a bar, what did we do? We went to the next one. So now I'm looking for a home group, because I ditched my last one. There was like 5 incidents of racism right there that I couldn't handle anymore, you know, by the same 3 people, you know. So I didn't get mad. I just, you know, people say, "Oh, you stay." Just say, "No, F you, I'm going." You know, you don't want Chucky to come back to the meeting. You know, so my life right now is I'm looking for a meeting. I go to meetings. I just haven't found a home group yet. In Las Vegas is nice. It has a lot of different meetings. And I really wish we had a native meeting. You know, I wish we had a white bison. I don't care. Something where we could gather and deal with our issues. But we don't have anything here. But it is a beautiful program. And sobriety, you know, being able to have hope is huge. Knowing that I'm going to be all right. You know, knowing I'm going to close it with this. My last year I thought I was going to die. I didn't know I was going to make it out of last year. I mean, I had 2019. I caught what was called valley fever, desert, and I ended up losing my upper lobe of my right lung, which is painful as shit. To tell you, holy man! My son. Nice thing is my son came out for a couple months, and my daughter came out for a couple months to look after me. But then I had this AFib event where your heart goes crazy, and I don't know if it's because the lung is not resting on it anymore or something. But I remember having AFib in a code blue in intensive care. My heart rate was going from 25 to 225. You know, and they had an IV in my neck and one in my arm and pumping. And what was scary about that was at the end of the bed was the guys who do the paddles. They were getting ready in case I went into stroke, and I go, holy shit. And all I wanted to do, like my previous 2 sponsors, was to die with dignity. And I made it to that point sober, and I said, if this is it, this is it. You know, and it's interesting. I always wanted a burning bush and thing, and my sponsor Archie used to go, well, who the hell do you think you are to get a burning bush? You know, and I said, well, I want one. Yeah. And I was laying there and that was going on, and this calmness came over me. And so I went into a couple of prayers. You know, I did the serenity prayer, you know, of course, when I was laying there. And then, God, what's that second one when you do? I used to get in a lot of trouble when I went to Catholic. So I did a lot of rosaries. Hail Mary. You know, at the time of our death, amen. I said that one. And this calm came over me. Like, if I'm ready to die, I'm not afraid to die anymore. That's, to me, in my mind, that was a gift from the Creator. He said, I'm going to get you ready for this, get you calm. So when you die, you could just pass on, you know. And I thought, man, that was wonderful. What an amazing gift. Then I came out of it. So you're stuck with Chucky. This is a beautiful program. It's a beautiful trip. It's a beautiful journey. And you will really get everything that you need, you know, from this guy who was in all his trouble to now with you guys, sitting in here, and we're all alive and we're all moving ahead, and we're going to do it. Thank you. Mitaka. I get that right?